Identifying and treating viral and bacterial illnesses is not included in Legacy Wilderness First Aid curriculum. However, many of the students that are attending my WOOFA course routinely lead groups of people in the wilderness. So I've added viral and bacterial infections as bonus content to the 2022 update of the School of First Aid's WOOFA course, and of course, the book and the app, Wilderness First Aid Made Easy. When you are leading a group, it is imperative that you're able to quickly identify when someone is presenting with a contagious viral or bacterial illness or a systemic infection. It can mean the difference between a positive outcome or a negative outcome. I encourage you to add an oral thermometer to your first aid kit. It's lightweight, it weighs a fraction of an ounce, and it's inexpensive, less than $10 US. An oral thermometer in your first aid kit will remove any question on whether someone in your group has a fever. So let's look at the power that an oral thermometer and Wilderness First Aid Made Easy brings to a School of First Aid WOOFA certified group leader. If someone is feeling ill and you've been with that person all day and know there's no possibility of a positive MOI, go to the illness assessment on page 8C, perform sample history and record a set of vitals, and take a record of the patient's oral temperature with the thermometer. Once you've collected the patient's sample history and vital signs, and if your patient is presenting with a fever, we have two options to consider: a viral or bacterial illness or an infection somewhere on the patient's body. If the patient is also complaining of symptoms that include general muscle soreness, stomach upset, and so on, let's look first on page 11B, Viral and Bacterial Infections in Wilderness First Aid Made Easy. This table will help you sleuth out what may be going on with your patient. At the bottom of each column, you'll find suggested evacuation guidelines. Viral and bacterial illnesses are contagious, and you need to protect the rest of your group from the infected patient so others do not become ill. And you'll need to consider that if you have one person with an illness, you may have others in the group that are ill also. Now, a patient presenting with a fever, but not presenting with the signs and symptoms found in the viral and bacterial illness table, may have a systemic infection. So, let's go to page 26, Infections, and see what we can learn there. You'll need to perform a thorough physical exam of the patient to identify the signs of infection. So you want to look for a wound that is infected, and this wound will be SHARP, which is an acronym for swelling, hot, achy, red, and pus. In this picture, you'll see an excellent example of an infected area that is SHARP. Also, while you're performing a physical exam, look for streaking. Streaking is a sign that the infection has entered the lymph system and has become a systemic infection. The streak will start at the site of the local infection and over a period of time travel toward the patient's heart. This infection, as it travels via the lymph system, will come in contact with lymph nodes, and these lymph nodes will become inflamed, and you can see swollen lymph nodes on the patient. Now, swollen lymph nodes will look like kidney beans under the patient's skin. Here in this picture, we have a patient with swollen lymph nodes in the neck. When you take the patient's vitals, you may also record elevated heart rate and respiratory rate. In the patient's skin, early stage, pale and cool; late stage, septic shock, the patient's skin will be red and hot, and this patient requires immediate evacuation to professional medical care. So, add an oral thermometer to your first aid kit, and if you haven't already, consider registering for one of our Wilderness First Aid certificate or certification courses. If you want to learn more about online and virtual first aid courses offered by the School of First Aid, click on the link in the video description, and if you like the content of this channel, please click on the subscribe and the like buttons. Be safe out there.